So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. The Detroit Lions are back to their winning ways. This past Sunday, they went all the way down to New Orleans to improve their record to 9-3 on the season and 5-1 on the road. The New Orleans Saints unfortunately fell to 5-7 on the year and 2-3 at home, unfortunately, likely knocking them out of the playoff race. It's not completely mathematically eliminated, but after this game, it will make the Saints' job a lot more difficult to make the playoffs, especially with the Atlanta Falcons improving back to 6-6. This game was very back and forth for the Detroit Lions. They started off really hot with 3 straight touchdown possessions in the first 6-7 minutes of the game, and then things kind of started to even out a little bit. And they actually, I think, got outplayed in the second half as opposed to the first half. So today, we're just going to take a recap of this game. We're just going to kind of go over the stats. We're going to go over how the game played out, what was good, what was bad, and whether or not we should be concerned or happy with this end result. So today we'll start off with the play-by-play. We'll start off going kind of just drive by drive, taking a look at what went well for the Detroit Lions and what did not go so well. So the Detroit Lions lost the coin toss, and the New Orleans Saints decided to kick the ball off. The Detroit Lions started off by going on a 3-minute, 45-second drive, 7 plays, 80 yards, capped off with a David Montgomery rushing touchdown. The next play, the first play for the Saints on offense, Derek Carr threw an interception, bounced right off the hands of Juwan Johnson, right to the arms of rookie Brian Branch. He got an interception in the red zone, and just 3 plays later, the Detroit Lions scored their second touchdown of the day as Sam Laporta had a receiving touchdown, the start to his big day. And then 3 plays later, just 50 seconds extra off the clock, the New Orleans Saints punted the ball back. Detroit went 3 plays, 54 yards, and scored a touchdown in 1:19. So 5 minutes into the game, the Detroit Lions were up 21-0. The Saints punted again, but then the offense started to stall. They went 3 plays, -9 yards, and then they punted the Saints, who found a little bit of life on offense, going 28 yards in 5 plays, but punted it back to the Lions, and it went back and forth until the Saints went on a 13-play, 84-yard drive in 6 minutes and 39 seconds to put themselves back in this game, making it 21-7, kind of taking it from 3 possessions to 2 possessions, swinging momentum back in favor of the Saints. The Lions punted. The Saints punted, the Lions drove down for a field goal, and they went into half up 24-7. Now, it wasn't bad by the Detroit Lions. The first half was actually quite good. Obviously, their start was really strong on offense. Their start to the defense was actually really good. They were stopping the run really well. They were setting the Saints behind the line of scrimmage early in the game, and they actually had a little bit of pass rush for the first 3 to 4 drives. They actually got to the quarterback. Aiden Hutchinson looked really good. Bruce Irvin got a sack. Aleem McNeil was getting pressure. Later in the game, Romeo Okwara got a sack and a couple pressures. Like, the defensive line wasn't awful in this game. They definitely disappeared for stretches, but especially for the first half, they were pretty good. So they went into the half 24-7. They were leading this game by 3 possessions by 17 points. And then the second half happened. New Orleans came out and they scored a touchdown, 10 plays, 75 yards, less than 5 minutes, made it look easy. Ben Johnson's offense stalled a little bit. They kind of got away from the run game. They didn't lean into it quite as much. And especially after Frank Ragnow left with an injury, you could tell that the rushing attack and the offensive line in general really just wasn't the same. You could tell that they weren't running the ball as effectively. And although this offensive line is incredibly talented, it is also incredibly fragile. The Lions offensive line played together for about 3 to 4 series. In those 3 to 4 series, they scored 21 points. And then when Frank Ragnow went out, it was very clear that the offensive line wasn't quite getting the same amount of push. They weren't quite getting as many open holes, quite as many open looks, quite as many clean pockets. and that really did allow the New Orleans Saints back into the game. So to open the second half, they went 3 plays, 3 yards, 2 minutes, and they punted. New Orleans went for 7 plays, 62 yards in 4 minutes, and scored a touchdown again, making it 24-21. The Lions answered back with a field goal on a 7-play, 65-yard drive, and then got extremely lucky that on the first play of the next drive, the left guard punched the ball out of Derek Carr's hands while they were in motion, and of course, the ball was recovered by the Detroit Lions. 2 plays later, Jameson Williams walked it in for a touchdown to improve the lead 33-21. The Saints drove down effortlessly for 12 plays, 75 yards, and scored again, making the game much closer than it had to be. But a couple punts later and 1 turnover on downs after an incompleted Jameis Winston pass, the Detroit Lions finished the game with a couple plays, 8 plays, 24 yards, taking the remaining 3 minutes off the clock, and the Lions escape with a 5-point victory. Now, my biggest takeaways from this game is, first off, the offense is really good. When the offensive line is fully healthy, when you have 5 starters across the offensive line, so you have Taylor Decker, you have Jonah Jackson, you have Frank Ragnow, you have Graham Glasgow, and you have Penei Sewell, they move anybody. They move everybody. In the rushing game, the pass protection looks incredible. The problem is, as I mentioned earlier, they happen to be made of glass and they don't stay on the field very long. Very often, this Detroit Lions offensive line is injured, and despite Hank Fairley, in my opinion, being the best offensive line coach in the NFL, having Colby Sorsdale ready, having Graham Glasgow ready as a starting backup this year, they aren't as talented as the starters. So when Frank Ragnow goes out, when Jonah Jackson goes out, there is a very clear downgrade in the play of this offensive line, and it's not from elite to bad, right? It's from elite to slightly above average, elite to good. But going from elite and moving the pile and just effortlessly moving the ball for your first 3 drives to then really struggling to run the ball for the remainder of the game versus a not very good Saints rushing defense, that is a little bit concerning, considering, of course, we know the Lions can't stay healthy. And although it does seem like Frank Ragnow had more of a contusion, more of a bruise, and probably won't miss too much time, it is concerning that if even just one of these offensive line members go down, it really seems like the Lions struggle to move the ball. They struggle to run the ball, especially, and things get a lot more dicey on offense without their starting offensive line, which again, doesn't play together very often. On defense, again, they started really, really well. Aaron Glenn came out with 11 days of preparation. The interception was a little bit lucky, but they were really close to the ball. So you have to give them credit for taking the football away. I think the second drive was their most impressive. They got pressure. They stopped the run really early. And actually, these 2 drives here, 3 plays negative 1 yards, 3 plays negative 5 yards, are really, really good. The Lions came out strong. They came out fast. They were flying around. They were making big tackles. Jet Campbell had 2 tackles for loss in the first 3 drives. And then the Saints started to make adjustments, and the Lions couldn't really make adjustments back, right? They figured out that Taysom Hill running the football was probably a good thing for them, and they figured that out on the 4th drive where they went 5 for 28. They still ended up punting, but the next drive they went 13 plays for 84 yards and a touchdown. They punted, and then they came back out of halftime. They went 75 yards. They went 62 yards. The fumble was not great for them, but that's, again, a fluky, lucky play by the defense. Whereas the next drive after that, they went 12 plays for 75. They went 8 plays for 42 and really only missed the pass because Jameis Winston is a backup quarterback. Derek Carr probably would have hit that throw if the timing had been just a little bit better. So the defense started really strong, and they showed why they're an elite run defense. They showed why they have the ability to stop the run early, and they actually showed a little bit of ability to get pressure with Bruce Irvin on the field. Aiden Hutchinson looked good. The interior got a little bit of pressure, but there was still some problems there as well. And then adjustments were made by the Saints, and adjustments were not equally as made by Aaron Glenn, which continues to be an issue for this Detroit Lions defense. However, we have talked about it enough, and I'm sure we will talk about it some more down the road. So we'll just leave it at the fact that Aaron Glenn, once again, for the 13th game in a row this season, has failed to make adjustments in the second half and very much had his defense looking like a liability after a very strong start. And after actually looking like he could turn things around for a couple of drives, it went back to being, oh, actually, hold on. I'm not going to play the guy that got me a sack in the first half. I'm not going to play guys that are getting turnovers. I'm not going to fix the defense. And the defense, once again, in the second half turned into a liability, giving up 21 points. And the Lions actually being outscored in the second half because the defense was just simply not very good. Taking a look at some of the box score stuff, taking a look at some of the players individually that did impress. Jared Goff had a nice bounce back day, 16 of 25, 213, 2 touchdowns, was sacked once, but wasn't under pressure all that much. He had a couple plays where he was certainly under pressure. One where he got the football out to David Montgomery and it was dropped. One play where he got it out to David Montgomery and it was dropped. A couple plays that just didn't quite seem to work as well as they wanted to. I know the screen pass to David Montgomery lost some yardage, and it looked like if Taylor Decker didn't get beat, it could have been a big play. But overall, Jared Goff 16 for 25, 2 touchdowns, no picks, no turnovers on the day for the Lions, which is really what they needed to do on offense. I think that's what they needed to show. It turns out when they don't turn the football over in the red zone, they put up 30 plus points a game. And it turns out even when they don't turn the football over, the defense still gives up 28 to 30 points a game. Not ideal for them. The running game was good to start the game and really, really poor to end the game. Obviously, the big factor there being Frank Ragnow missing a majority of the second half. Jahmyr Gibbs, 8 for 60, 7.5 yards a carry. Probably should have got him a little bit more involved, but they really didn't need to. David Montgomery, 18 carries, 56, and a touchdown on the opening drive. Jamison Williams had 1 for 19 and a touchdown, while Khalif Raymond got involved with 1 carry for 9 yards and a score. Jared Goff officially had 2 rushing attempts for -2 yards, but that's what you get with Jared Goff. Sam Laporta had his best day as a pro, having 9 receptions, 140 yards, 15 yards a catch, and a touchdown with a long of 49, 9 targets, 9 receptions. Elite day from the rookie tight end, best rookie tight end of the class, and arguably a top 5 tight end right now in the NFL after just 13 games of his career. Amon-Ra was pretty quiet, did have 6 targets, but had only 2 receptions for 49 yards and a touchdown. Had that big touchdown on the 3rd drive of the game. After that was relatively quiet for the most part. Josh Reynolds sealed the game with 1 catch for 12 yards, had 3 targets, looked a little bit off the last couple of games. Him and Jared Goff haven't quite been on the same page, but at the end of the game, when it mattered, he went to his guy, and Josh Reynolds came up with the biggest play of the match. Jamison Williams had just 1 catch for 11 yards. Actually, the very first pass of the game went Jamo's way for 11, and he did not get a target after that. But, of course, the rushing touchdown was the thing to break this game wide open. The offense did not turn the football over. However, Josh Pascal did recover a fumble, and it does say Khalif Raymond fumbled the football, although I do not quite remember that, and it obviously didn't impact the game too much at all. It might have been on his rushing play. He might have fumbled out of bounds, but it was never a dangerous fumble at that. Jet Campbell, playing his natural Mike linebacker position, finally looked like an elite first-round linebacker. 9 tackles, 2 tackles for loss was really, really good. Derek Barnes also had 9 tackles in a TFL. He was not quite as good, but I thought was really solid. Brian Branch had 7 total tackles, 3 solo tackles, 1 pass defended, 1 interception. He was really good again. Jerry Jacobs was in a position to get a pick. However, Brian Branch's pass deflection actually led to a major passing play for the Saints. Not great. Kirby Joseph, I thought, had a couple nice plays. Josh Pascal, I thought, played really, really well, as did Quentin Bohanna. The interior, I thought, actually showed a little bit of life. Aiden Hutchinson had a tackle for loss. Romeo Okwara had a sack and a tackle for loss. Bruce Irvin, despite playing just 11 snaps, had a quarterback knockdown, a quarterback hit, and a sack on the day. He was really, really good, I thought. He might have, he did not force a fumble, although it kind of looked like he did on the play. He got roughing the passer. It looked like a fumble, although I think they officially counted it as a passing play for Derek Carr. Again, Brian Branch had the lone takeaway of the day for the defense. Khalil Dorsey returned punts at an okay rate. Khalif Raymond had just 2 attempts for a punt return, didn't do very much. And Riley Patterson was perfect on the day. Jack Fox, shout out, had averaged 50 yards a punt and was really, really good. Set this field position really well for the Lions defense. Not that it ended up mattering, but Jack Fox is a very strong punter for the Lions. Taking a look at the defensive stats and the stats of the Saints offense, Derek Carr was 17 for 22, 226, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Again, the interception really not his fault. Bounced right off the hands of Juwan Johnson, who had a very rough day, but officially goes on the stat sheet for Derek Carr. He left in the middle of the 4th quarter after being sacked twice, once by Bruce Irvin, once by Romeo Okwara, and Jameis Winston came in and finished the game 2 for 5, 41 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 picks, and a failed 4th down pass attempt. Taysom Hill actually led the Saints in rushing yards, 13 carries for 54 yards and a touchdown. Alvin Kamara was not super effective or efficient, but was really good in the red zone, finding the end zone twice. I think the biggest story of the day is the Detroit Lions' inability to stop teams in the red zone. Once teams get into the red zone, they pretty much score a touchdown every single time. Since week 7, they are 81% scored on touchdowns in the red zone. And that was before the Saints went 4 for 4 in the red zone. So that percentage probably got worse, and it's not good. I would guess right now it's probably sitting around 83, 84% in the red zone right now. And that's not them scoring in the red zone. That's them scoring touchdowns, 6 to 7 points in the end zone every single time they get between the 20s. Every single time a team reaches every single time a team reaches the red zone, they essentially score a free touchdown versus the Detroit Lions. That is the biggest problem for this defense right now. Obviously, third down conversions, all of that is a problem, but the red zone defense being about 84% is inexcusable for any defense, let alone a defense of a 9-3 first place football team. Chris Olave had another 100-yard game, I believe back-to-back now on the season. 5 receptions, 119. He was the engine of the offense. Alvin Kamara was good. A.T. Perry had a nice 30-yard catch. Foster Moreau had a couple of catches. Taysom Hill was involved in the receiving game. Jimmy Graham had the lone receiving touchdown. And of course, Juwan Johnson, as I said, had 3 targets and I believe 2 or 3 drops, including the one that went for a pick. Derek Carr also lost a fumble punched out by his very own left tackle and recovered by our very own Josh Pascal. The defense wasn't awful for the Saints. I thought that they kind of were put in really bad spots early in the game. Zach Bond got Penei Sewell's first sack since week 10 of last year. It was well over a calendar year since Penei Sewell had allowed a sack. Zach Bond got the better of him, had really nice dip, really good at bending around the edge, and got a sack on Jared Goff. But other than that, the offensive line was pretty good all day, and Jared Goff was kept relatively clean outside of that. Overall, it was not a bad game for the Detroit Lions. Any game that the Detroit Lions win, any game that you start by going up 21-0 is not a bad game, but I would say right around the start of the second half, the Lions were significantly worse, right? They scored touchdowns on offense, and I would say that the offensive line injuries really, really did hurt them. But the second half, they were outplayed by a 5-7 football team, a 2-3 football team at home with major injuries on the offensive side of the ball, with major injuries on the defensive side of the ball. They were outplayed, significantly outplayed at that. And yeah, they were able to come back at the end. They were able to score a touchdown from Jameson Williams, which is great. But at the end of the day, they weren't very good in the second half, and they were great in the first half. If you go into the half 24-7, you should win that game, no questions asked. There should not even be within a score of you by the end of that game. You should not be giving up a 21-17 whatever deficit in the second half, and that's almost exactly what the Detroit Lions did. They won this game by 5. They put up 33. The offense continues to thrive. I would expect the offense to continue to get better as the season goes on, continue to include Jameson Williams, and if the offensive line gets healthy, they are unstoppable on offense. Truly an unstoppable unit when the Lions offensive line is healthy. But they got to figure out how to get some sacks and some pressures and some turnovers on defense. Because even with 2 turnovers, this defense almost sold the game after the Lions put up 33 points. And that is not okay. So the Lions got to find a way to get pressure. They got to find a way for the secondary to play better. They got to find a way for either to replace Jerry Jacobs or just to improve his play, give him a little bit of protection over the top. Secondary breakdowns are inexcusable. I think the lack of pass rush when you showed that certain guys can get to the quarterback and then taking them off the field for most of the game is pretty inexcusable. There's a lot of things to work out on the defense, but the offense looked great again. The Lions improved to 9-3. They go to Chicago next week, probably in the cold, wintry Soldier Field. So that should be very interesting to see how the running game works. Hopefully the offensive line can be healthy. But with all that being said, as I got for you guys right now, that is the recap of the Detroit Lions Week 13 game against the New Orleans Saints. I got to go back and study for some finals. So with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. Thank you all so very much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions.